Hey guys, I just wanted to take a second and share a concept that I've had that I think will help make sense of the way we move on paths of integration and disintegration away from our type, our number. And I like to think of this as kind of the outhouse and the apple orchard and the cabin idea, okay? And so what I mean is, imagine that the number that is your Enneagram type, like for me, is a 7, okay? So 7 is my log cabin. It's where I live. It's my home. I'm most comfortable being a 7. Enthusiastic, adventurous. You know, let's up the energy. Let's whatever 7s do. That's my home. That's where I live. All of us live in that number that is our type, and when we get frustrated, when we get upset, when we get insecure, we'll know that because the sign is we'll move to that path of disintegration. So for a 7, that is a 1. And that is, in a sense, like going down the hill from the cabin to the bottom of the hill where the outhouse is. Okay? So when you disintegrate to your number of insecurity, you're sitting in the outhouse. This is where you're frustrated, this is where you're upset, this is where you're hurt, this is where you're angry, this is where you're bitter. And so when you're feeling all of those things, just recognize you're sitting in the outhouse. And life is not meant to be lived in an outhouse. We're not meant to, take up residence there in the outhouse. We need to go there at times because we've gotten overwhelmed, we've gotten insecure, we've gotten hurt, we've gotten frustrated, we've let projects go on without giving them the attention that they deserved, and now we hit a deadline, and here we are, we find ourselves at the bottom of the hill, sitting in the old stinky outhouse, upset, hurt, angry, and all of those things. Now, when you recognize that you are at your number of disintegration, you can decide how long am I want to sit here in this outhouse. If I wanted to, I could just be upset and mad and angry, and I can just sit here in the old outhouse for as long as I want to. But I got to ask myself at some point, do I really want to stay here? Do I really want to live here? What kind of people am I going to attract in my life if I just live in this outhouse? What kind of a day am I going to have if I just decide to stay here in this little shack of frustration, gloom, and stink? Do I want to stay here? And once I recognize where I'm at, I can decide, I really don't want to live here. This is not my address. This is not my home. And so there's no need for me to stay here longer than is necessary. So I can make my way up, but it's going to take some effort. I can make my way up from that one place, for me, back up to that 7 cabin, where life is good once again. And sometimes it can be as simple as just recognizing, okay, here I am, I'm frustrated, I'm upset, I've let my deadlines go, and now I've got to get stuff done, I've got to go to my 1 zone. But I don't have to do it with that attitude, with that frustration, upset, anger, angst, all those things. If I wanted to right now, I could choose to have a better attitude, I could choose to be positive, I could choose to go back to my 7 number, and I could go up from the outhouse back to my cabin where life is good, and I could approach all these problems now with that joy and with that spontaneity that I have as a 7. It's going to take some work, it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take you recognizing what's going on and being aware and being present to life. But I can come back to my cabin. Now, what's cool on my cabin, everybody, you have neighbors on either side of you. For the 7, that's the 8 on one side and the 6 on the other. And I can borrow from those neighbors if I need to. If I need some caution, I need to exercise some anxiety, and maybe before I go skydiving, or maybe before I bungee jump off this bridge, maybe I should use a little lean on old number 6 over here and say, is this a wise thing to do? What could go wrong? Let me think about this. What do other people around me do, and what do they say about this? So I could lean on 6 as a neighbor and borrow from that energy a little bit. Or maybe there's times as a 7 I need to sort of man up and and be more confident and be more assertive and be more sure, I can lean on the neighbor 8 over here, and I could say, hey, I need some help, getting a backbone, and I need to just press forward and do what needs to be done, instead of just sitting in the 7 cabin and dreaming and planning and thinking and all that. I need to just lean on the 8, and I need to look somebody in the eye and tell them what I need to say. And you can borrow from these neighbors. Whatever number you are, whatever cabin you live in, you can borrow from your 2 neighbors on either side of you. Now, chances are you'll have a better association with one neighbor than you do with the other, but they're both there. They're both there to help you deal with life and make it through life. Now, imagine at the top of the hill. So here's your cabin, here on this woody knoll. But then an outhouse is down at the bottom of the hill, and you need to go there at times, but you don't want to live there. And some people have been living in their outhouse for a long time. And it's time to get up. It's time to wake up and recognize, this is not me. This is not my home. I've been frustrated and upset and hurt and angry for too long, bitter for too long. This is not where I want to live. I need to move out of this outhouse and back up to my cabin. But what's cool is that there are times when you're really healthy and you're feeling secure and you are confident and you're loved and you're able to love everybody else, and you've leaned on your neighbors and you feel supported and all the things are right in the world. You can, with a little bit of effort, make your way up to the top of the hill where, guess what, the apple orchard is. Okay? And this is your path of integration to the number that your type goes to in security. So for a 7, that's a 5. And for me, what that looks like is when everything's good and I'm, feeling in tune with the world, and then I can become a researcher, an investigator, and I can dig and dig and dig, and I can gather information, and I can just enjoy my time at the top of the hill up in the apple orchard, just accumulating knowledge, accumulating information. I don't need to be a 7 out among all the people. I can withdraw and be by myself and be okay and not feel like I need anything, because 5s, they can be quite content with very little. And when a 7 is healthy, they can move to that place where they feel relatively, comfortable and at ease with the world and can become an investigator. And so whatever number your type integrates to, that number of, that path of integration, think of it as your apple orchard at the top of your hill. And, you can't live there. I'm not a 5, so I don't live in that apple orchard, and you don't live in your path number of integration either, but you get to visit there a few times, and you get to benefit from that journey to the top of the hill, and you get to pick those apples there, and you get to enjoy them, and you can even bring them back down into your cabin, maybe make an apple pie, and you get to experience those moments where you're connected, where you're tuned in, where you're present, where you're alert, where all seems right in the world. And those moments are important for all of us. So I think this is a helpful analogy, metaphor, whatever, to help you in your own journey to recognize where you're at. And maybe if you can just disassociate a minute from your personality and say, man, right now, I'm withdrawn, I'm upset, I'm angry, I've moved to my, or I've blown up and I've lost it, and I've lost my temper, and I've moved to my outhouse, and I have every right to just sit here and just stew and just be upset. And you do. And maybe you need to stay there for a little bit and vent all that out, but recognize what's going on. And then ask yourself, how long do I want to live here in this stinky outhouse? It's up to me to take responsibility for myself, and I don't have to live here forever. It's going to take a little bit of work climbing up that hill again, but go back and live in the house that's your house. If you need to borrow from your neighbors every once in a while, lean on those numbers and learn to lean more on the neighbor that you may be a little more unfamiliar with. It'll balance you out and make you a more developed, well-rounded person. But then recognize too, when you're having those good times and those good moments where you're just secure and you feel supported and cared for and loved, and you make your way up to the top of the hill, just enjoy the fruit that's up there, and eat from that fruit and just enjoy that, and recognize that you can't live in the apple orchard, but you can be nourished by it and enriched by it. So let yourself. And above all things, remember, be present to life. Life is what it is, and you don't get to choose everything that happens in life. And certainly there's going to be times when you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're going to want to, whatever. You're going to want to reach for something, or maybe go in a direction that's not healthy. But recognize that you can be present to life as it is, and that nourishment and that richness that you receive when you're in your apple orchard, you can bring with you into life and share that with the people that surround you in this life. So, like always, thank you guys. I hope it's been helpful. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to get in touch with me, my information is in the description. I love to help you out and hear from you in any way I can. And as always, blessings on you. And until next time, we'll see you.